I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast from my head to your ears. And today I want to talk about my high school reunion. It's coming up in a few days, and it's been 40 years since I graduated the great class of 1985. 40 years. It still blows my mind. I have a lot of thoughts about this. That's a long time ago. But it's just so hard for me to believe that 1985 was 40 years ago. It just blows my mind. So I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to talk about that and some other stuff. I'm Leonard Riggs. This is my podcast, from my head to your ears. I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast from my head to your ears. And today I'm talking about my 40th high school class reunion, which is coming up Saturday. Well, from the time that I'm recording this, it just blows my mind that 1985 could possibly be 40 years ago. And, I think back, a lot of things have happened in the last 40 years, obviously. For that matter, a lot of things have happened since our 30th class reunion. I attended the 30th back 10 years ago in 2015, and we were going to have a 35th, but COVID, kind of put a damper on it. They had a small reunion that I didn't attend during that time, but I really enjoyed the 30th, and that was the first class reunion I went to. So I'm looking forward to this one, and I hope we have a really big turnout. But the sad part is, along with the 40-year reunion, you lose a lot of people, and I had worked on a project where I was taking the yearbook pictures of the people that had passed. Of course, since we were 85 and we were a small school, our yearbooks were black and white. We had a few color pictures, but none of our senior pictures. So I cleaned them up and colorized them, and they'll be included in the reunion. But it kind of made me really think, who would have thought, the people that have passed in my class, who would have thought they wouldn't be here now? It's very sad. I had the people that were really... growing up in a small town, our school didn't have a lot of students, and I think we had like 75 people in our class. So a friend of mine just went to a graduation where they had like 314 people. And there's some schools with even more than that, but you can't possibly know everybody in your class when your class is that big. But the advantage to being in a small school is, you know everybody. And I pretty well remember everybody, but there were a couple of people, when I'm looking back at the yearbook, I'm like, who was that? Maybe they were new or just moved that year, and I didn't have classes with them and never got to know them. There were a couple, even with our small class. And the fact is, there were a couple that I just flat out do not remember. So that's kind of strange. But you always have a connection with your classmates. And there's something about, especially the ones that you went from kindergarten all the way to senior year with, you always have that connection. And I always have a soft spot in my heart for these people. Now, in my school, from kindergarten to the 8th grade, it was just Christopher. There's a smaller town next to us back then. Anyway, they had their own school. It was Monkeytown, Illinois. And that was a very small school. And then when you go to high school, they would consolidate. So everybody went to Christopher High School. So a lot of those Monkeytown kids I met my freshman year in high school. So So I don't know them as long, but still, that was a very important time in your development from high school freshman to senior. Those 4 years are like dog years. I swear, you certainly, from the time you're a freshman to the time you're a senior, you certainly don't look the same. That is the biggest 4 years of change in your life. I mean, you start out as a little kid and you end up a young adult by the time you're a senior, and physically and mentally and everything, you're totally different from when you were a freshman. So those 4 years, and like I said, you have a special connection to the people from those years of your life. And it's, I love when you go to those, like the early years, you ran into your classmates. It's kind of funny. I noticed the 10-year, and I didn't go to my 10th reunion. They didn't have a big turnout, if I recall, but, working where I work, I saw a lot of these people on a daily basis. And it's funny in your 20s how I think that's probably the peak of the way you look. Like you're in shape and you're suntan and you're young, and some people are starting out families, and, you're still thin, and you know what I mean? And then it's like, you go to your 20th reunion and it's like, okay, you're putting on a little weight. Guys are starting to lose their hair. You've started families. You're kind of over, you're still partying, but you're not partying. And then you go out to your 30th and your kids are kind of teenagers, and, guys are getting even more bald. People are starting to get gray. We've all put on weight. There's just a very few that didn't. And, it starts to change, and we're getting middle-aged. And now you get to your 40th, and I say, I've been joking about this. I say, this is an old people's reunion. Now we're pushing 60 and we are grandparents, or our kids are grown. Unless you're like me, you don't have kids, but I've got a great niece. I've got great nieces and nephews now. And I've been at my job for 35 years. My hair's gray. I've got a bald spot. You know, I'm paunchy. I'm not the skinny kid they knew back in 1985. I'm louder than I used to be. I was a quiet kid. But you know, it's funny. And I'm wondering if everybody else agrees. I still feel like that kid. I still feel like the kid I was 40 years ago. And it's just not all ahead of me anymore. It's all behind me. And I'm looking forward to retirement at this point. And my attitude's changed. Being almost 60, I'm comfortable with who I am. I am who I am. I is who I is, I guess. I'm not so worried about what people think, and I kind of like this time of my life. It's the good point of this time of my life. There's a lot of bad points, but looking at the positive side, that's nice. Being comfortable with yourself, and, not needing to show off, and not needing to feel inferior to people. You are who you are, and you can't change it, and why worry about it? We're all getting older, and also you develop the sense of, aren't we lucky to be here? Because we lost those people in our class, and it's people you would have never thought we would have lost. We just lost a classmate last month, and it was a shocker. And going through those pictures, it just made me really sad, because I love those people dearly, and it's just strange. But these reunions seem to be markers, and like I said, the 10-year reunion I wasn't interested in. Even the 20-year reunion I wasn't, but the 30 years, all of a sudden, you know, you're 48 years old, you're pushing 50, you're starting to feel old, probably lost a couple of classmates, and you realize, hey, I need to see these people again because we may not have another 10 years. So, that's why I think it's good to go to these reunions and touch with these people and reunite and catch up and just enjoy each other's company. It's just important, and that's why I'm going. I'm really excited about going. I even got me a t-shirt that says the class of 85 that I'm going to wear. Won't they all be jealous that they don't have one of those t-shirts? But I just thought about it. Hopefully it'll be in on time for me to go to my reunion. But you can't. It's funny at this age too. The future is just, it's so cloudy. It's not a point of, oh, I'm going to go to college and I want to do this. It's a point of, well, I'm going to retire and I hope I don't die. Which I don't mean to be morbid, but that really is true. And I was talking about when I was doing that project for my reunion, I was helping out with those pictures and I was glad to do it. Very glad. I mean, I enjoy messing with that program and I enjoy fooling with photographs. So don't get me wrong, but this month for me is a really rough month. And if you wonder why I haven't been podcasting, I've really been having a hard time because I lost both my mom and dad in May. Dad 9 years ago and mom a year ago. And I didn't know this month was going to hurt so bad, but it has been a doozy. And I am so glad we're approaching the end of the month. I've still got Father's Day to cope with, which really bothers me. I try not to let it, and I try to be thankful that I had such great parents. But, oh man, it's hard. I really like to spoil my parents on these holidays, especially my dad. I still see things I'd like to buy my dad. My dad was like me. He was kind of a big kid at heart, and he liked toys and stuff. Like I found a Flash Gordon action figure, and my dad would have really liked that just to have on his shelf. But, yeah, so the month of May is really hard. And this was the first year I was without both my parents. And the fact that, oh my gosh, I've been a whole year without my mom blows my mind and it breaks my heart. But I kind of like that I've got this reunion with these people that I've known for such a good time of my life, good portion of my life. But anyway, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to talk a little bit about 1985 and what I remember. So, and from 84 to my senior year. So I'm Leonard Riggs. This is my podcast from my head to your ears. I will be right back. I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast from my head to your ears. Sorry for that little moment of silence. I'm talking about reuniting with my classmates and the fact that it's been 40 years since my high school graduation back in 1985, May of 1985. You know, it's funny, I don't remember the date. I'm really good about remembering exact dates, but for some reason I don't remember. I know it was the last week of the month in May, so it was this week, but I wish I could remember. Actually, well, shoot, I don't have my yearbook. I had to borrow our class president's yearbook to do finish those pictures. I wished I would have checked it out. Anyway, if anybody out there listens from my class and know the date that we graduated, just shoot me a message, because I'm going to put that down in my calendar so I can remember that every year, because that's a really important date. I was thinking about 1985, and it's funny how that just does not seem that long ago to me. 1985 was really the height of the 80s music. I still loved Olivia Newton-John, and sadly, she put an album out later in 85, but for my senior year, she did not have a new project out. And I was kind of bummed about that because she was really popular in my early part of high school. And then, well, let me think here. 81, she had Physical. 82, she had Heart Attack. 83, she had, Twist of Fate. And then 84, and 85, my senior year, she didn't have any single out during that period from September of 84 to May of 85. It kind of bums me out a little bit. But, I was trying to remember, sometimes the 80s gets mashed up in your brain. Like, it's not 85, it's just the 80s. And, so trying to remember specific. Sorry, I can't say that. That's a new one. I swear I've had a stroke and I can't talk anymore. I can't say specific. Oh, I said it. I can't say firefighters either. Firefighter. I can't say that. Anyway, firefighters. Crap. I'm trying to remember back 84, 85 was my senior year. September 84 to May of 85. And what I do remember, Prince was very popular. Madonna was just, you could not get away from that woman. She was everywhere. And with me, either I loved her or I hated her. It was the age of the blockbuster films. A lot of good movies out at that time. And for the life of me, I may have to do another segment and look these up to remember exactly what was popular at that time. But music was really, really the big thing back then. And, 80s fashion was just really coming into its own. The early 80s was kind of generic, but by the mid 80s, girls, and they really weren't into the big hair just quite yet. It was coming. But I remember parachute pants for guys. Mullets were starting to happen. Like I said, MTV was a big influence with our culture. I remember the Miss America scandal where Vanessa Williams, nude pictures of her leaked and she got decrowned. Oh shoot. I remember, wasn't it Walter Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro were running for president that year in 84? I believe so. And that was the first woman to run for vice president. There's a name you don't hear very often, Geraldine Ferraro. These are the things off the top of my head. Madonna was into her Like a Virgin phase. Prince was amazing. I think my favorite album at that time, let me think. I really don't remember. It wasn't an Olivia Newton-John album in 85. I'm going to have to look this stuff up. I'm really shocked at myself. Oh, I guess that comes with being out of high school for 40 years. I'm starting to forget. When senility sets in, I'll remember again. That's what the one thing you have to look forward to with being senile. I'll remember stuff that happened when I was a kid. I won't remember stuff that happened to me 5 minutes ago, but I'll remember, 40 years ago. Anyway, you know what? I'm gonna, when I take a break, I'm gonna look up some things and then I'll get back with you on this because I really, excuse me, I really, am at a loss. I pull these podcasts out of my butt usually, so I never prepare, as I never know really what I'm going to talk about. I just kind of fly off the handle. But I was talking about how I've had so much loss lately, and I feel like I'm just a big black hole of despair. And I say that to everybody. And then what do I work on? You know, for the class reunion, I work on the pictures of the dead classmates, and I'm like, you know what? I'm about to put a robe on, a black robe, and carry a sign with me, because I feel like I don't mean to be so negative. It's like, how are you doing? Oh, half my family's dead, and I've lost some friends. I mean, geez Louise. I'm so sick of this death thing. And I don't mean to laugh, but it's so oddly humorous to me that everything's just gone to crap all at once. But you gotta laugh. You gotta have a sense of humor. And thank God I do, because right now there's a part of me that just wants to sit here and cry. But, I would rather just laugh. I love to feel good. But it's such a great joy to have former classmates come in and to see they're doing well, and to reminisce and talk about the old days. And like I said, usually my memory's on spot, but I just totally lost track of what was popular in the year of 85. I remember a lot of good TV at that time. I remember night tracks on WTBS. And I remember Friday night videos. Seeing music was just a big part of my time. I listened to CIL. I was a top 40 junkie. I'm not a rock and roller. I never liked metal. My friends love metal. There's a whole, I think unfortunately the internet, people can totally get into what they like, and they kind of totally diss what they don't like. And a lot of people get made fun of for liking pop music. Even now, I think my generation will never really fully grow up. But, hey, music is a great thing. To me, you can enjoy whatever you want. It doesn't make you gain weight. It doesn't cause cancer. It's just, it is what it is. It makes you feel good. And it's not a illegal high. It's just one of those things God gave us to make us smile and make us happy and make your day better. That's the way I look at it. So I feel like I'm going all over the place instead of talking about my reunions. But I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to look some things up, and I'll talk more about what was popular back in 1985. I'm Leonard Riggs. This is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears. I'll be back. I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears, and I'm talking about my 40th class reunion. I'm talking about the year 1985, and I'm talking about me being old and decrepit and not yet senile and not being able to remember 1985 that well, which surprises me. So I had to actually go look things up, because I think it's just today I'm really tired, and usually I'm Johnny on the spot with entertainment, facts and figures. But I was looking back at some of the stuff from 1985, not necessarily just, entertainment, but, music, but that kind of stuff. Looking back, something I totally forgot about was Coca-Cola, changing their formula, and it was horrible. They were having Pepsi challenges, and then Coke got their new flavor, and it was a big bomb, and it was really horrible. And then later they came out with Coke Classic, and they had Coke 2, but it eventually was phased out, and Coca-Cola won out. But to me, nothing tastes the same as it used to because they use different ways of flavoring, like we use that horrible corn syrup when they used to use real sugar. I miss the real sugar flavor. I think it's better for you. Not that it's good for you at all, but I think it's better for you than something artificial, I should say. The number one film of 1985 was Back to the Future, but it didn't come out to the summer. So, the movies I think everybody was watching was Beverly Hills Cop, and, I'm looking. The Goonies came out. Now, that's kind of a cult, classic, but I never really cared for the Goonies, and I still don't. Actually, that came out after high school, too. The summer of 85 was a really good year. So I'm trying to look for films that came out. The Breakfast Club. Yeah, that was a big film that year. Big classic. That was a very definitive movie about the time I went to high school. Molly Ringwald was a huge star. She had not only The Breakfast Club, but she was in 16 Candles, which is a movie that I still love. And obviously the humor is not aged well, I guess. Honestly, it's still funny to me, but when I say it's not aged well, it isn't appropriate for today's audiences. It just kind of irritates me, but it's just still a fun film. It's fun to reminisce on that, and it does show kind of what it was like back then. Weird Science. Everything was really youth culture again. MTV the early 80s was kind of, let's call it adult contemporary, aimed at adults, but with MTV, I think the culture had shifted and it was starting to be, we had our own teen culture. We finally got an identity of what it was to be a teen in the 80s, even though by that point I was already 17, 18. But MTV kind of captivated the youth of that time and kind of gave it an identity. We weren't riding the coattails of the 1970s. We were in the 1980s, and we finally had something to show for it. We had our fashion that was going on and everything specific to the 1980s. By that point, I remember that was the year Whitney Houston exploded. I remember buying her album. I was thinking back on music, and that was a really good album, her first album. That's one of my favorite albums. It had Saving All My Love for You. It had How Will I Know. Had all those songs that she released early in her career. Whitney was very young and very fresh-faced, and her story is really sad. Who would have thought she'd ended up the way she did? I believe Cyndi Lauper was really popular at that time. Like I said, MTV had a huge influence on everything in our lives. And it's funny because MTV was a paid part of cable, so you didn't just have it. I finally got MTV at home much later than high school. But like I said, there was knockoffs like Friday night videos and all that stuff, so you would watch those on Friday nights. Not like I was out running around, because I didn't run around too much. I was such a geek. But We Are the World was big, which I never really cared for, but it had its heart in the right place. I thought it was kind of a lame song. Not one I listened to or will listen to. I forgot about Wham. George Michael was very popular. I remember they were going to have Wham, a Wham song as the theme for the prom, and all the guys, mind you, I'm in a country area, so they weren't real fond of Wham. So there was a big controversy, and I don't remember what our prom theme was that year. I didn't go, so it doesn't matter. But But Hall & Oates was still popular. Madonna. Madonna. I remember Shaka Khan having a big hit with I Feel For You, which I believe was written by Prince. Like I said, Prince was a huge influence then. Foreigner was big. All sorts. Bruce Springsteen had his Born in the USA album, and he had a lot of hits that year. And I think that was the first time Bruce Springsteen was really a hit maker. So, Phil Collins was big at that time. See, I can't remember what part of the 85, if this was before high school or after high school. But I'm looking through this, and it's interesting. We had computers our senior year. We had a computer class, and they basically were word processors. We had Apple computers, and basically, they're nothing like they are now. The internet was still not a thing yet. That was to come much later. Let's see. CD players were getting popular. They were still really expensive, and CDs were very expensive. You were talking about record albums being $4.95 at that time. CDs were like $15 at that time, if not $20, and that was not very affordable, to say the least. Ataris were real popular at that time. Actually, it was talking about the video games going bankrupt in 1983. I don't remember that, but I think Nintendo was coming up. Okay, TV shows. I was too old for cartoons. So they weren't my thing in 1985. TV shows, Growing Pains, Mr. Belvedere. I remember that show real well, with Bob Uecker as the father. The Cosby Show was very popular. Family Ties, of course, Michael J. Fox was around my age, so actually he was actually older playing younger, but those kids were very 80s. Cheers was popular. Dallas was still running. Let's see. So those shows were real popular. I was really, WrestleMania was getting exciting, and Hulk Hogan and all those things. I don't know. It was just a real pop culture era. Yeah, like I said, mullets were coming into their own. And I think it's funny that mullets have come back in a big way, and that is like the worst hairstyle for guys and girls. I just hate that. Olivia Newton-John had a mullet, for gosh sakes. And she went from that beautiful, long, flowing hair in Xanadu to having a dang mullet. And Olivia couldn't look bad in any way, but I just didn't enjoy that era. Oh, what I remember about fashion is everything was bright. It was bright and colorful. And, yeah, I was still a big Olivia Newton-John fan at that time, obviously. Billy Joel was always one of my favorites. I kind of was in that adult contemporary early 80s thing. I wanted to be Rick Springfield. Rick Springfield probably was my male idol. Always enjoyed him. He was on General Hospital, and he had really good music, and I still like to pull out that stuff and listen to it now. I'm just mishmashing around. I watched a lot of TV, but I still was a big Star Trek fan, and Star Trek movies were popular. In 85, though, there was not a Star Trek movie, unfortunately. But they did have 84 was that Star Trek 3, I think. I believe so. But anyway, I'm going to take a break. My brain is scrambled. I'm going to take a breath because my nose is stopped up. I'm Leonard Riggs. This is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears. I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast From My Head to Your Ears, and I'm talking about the fact that I have a 40th class reunion coming up this weekend, and I was thinking a lot about the 1980s, particularly 1985, my senior year, and I was thinking about trying to remember facts and figures and movies and everything, but what I do remember about 1985, what I take out of that era, is the fact that it was a very social era. You still talked to people. You weren't buried in your phone. Computers were just a new thing. You could play video games. Often you'd play together. You talked a lot on the phone. We didn't have cell phones. You couldn't talk on the phone everywhere you went. You had to talk on the phone that were corded usually. I think cordless phones were coming into their own, but still they were kind of not the best things in the world. They were kind of clunky and big and didn't have a lot of range. So a lot of times you were talking on a corded phone and you were just kind of regulated. If you weren't lucky enough to have a phone in your room, you were regulated to the living room where your parents could hear your conversations. And I remember my best friend Craig Edwards moved to McLeansboro early in high school, and McLeansboro's a few miles away, and back then you didn't have the internet to keep in contact, so you might as well move to Australia because you couldn't just get on the internet and chat. You didn't have texting. But it made everything special. VCRs were coming into their own. I had an RCA Selectavision video disc player, and that was a weird thing. Look it up if you know what that is. It was literally a video disc player, and you slid this big old thing into the player, and you pulled it out, and it played movies, and you had to turn it on the other side. It was almost like playing a record, but it had a movie on it. You didn't have that. Immediate anything. Nothing was immediate. You couldn't just go, I want to watch Wizard of Oz and just get on your phone or whatever, on your Roku, whatever, and stream it. You didn't have all that. So everything was very, very special. And it just made things more exciting. When the Wizard of Oz aired on TV, just as an example, it was still, you get to watch it again. You just couldn't pull out things when you wanted to. VCRs were starting to make things where you could watch things at your convenience, and it seemed like such a advancement in technology. And I had a friend who had a Betamax, and Craig Edwards and my friend Richard Gower, and you could watch things when you wanted. We used to watch SCTV early in my high school years on lunch break when my friend Craig lived by the high school. He would tape it every Friday. But my senior year, Craig had moved, like I said, and I didn't get a VCR till the next year, which is strange. But you had people hung around uptown. You had your little spots. They cruised town in their cars. And not everybody had new cars back then. Probably your first car was a clunker, or you got to use your parents' car. You didn't go buy houses and every child has their own car. Unless you were rich. And like I said, if you did have your own car, it was probably a 300-year-old car. When you go to the high school, student parking lot was just, it wasn't filled up. There wasn't rows and rows of cars. There was like one row of cars. We did have an open campus back then. This is before, who would have thought there would be school shootings? We didn't have that insecurity of maybe someone coming in with a gun. There was no alarms at the door. I actually, like, when I wanted to go home, I would just go home. There was no calling my parents. I would go for lunch and go home, and then go, I'd skip out. I did that a few times. My senior year, I had enough credits to where I could go in at 9 a.m. and leave at 1. So my senior year was a little less social for me because I wasn't there as much. So I missed out on some things. I think my senior yearbook, I hardly appear in. My picture's in there, but there's no candid shots of me. I think my junior year is a lot of them. So I missed out on a lot going in the schedule like that. But, yeah, your senior year too, you take a lot of college prep classes. And that was a funny thing. My parents, what I wanted to do with my life, I wanted to go to SIU and I wanted to study broadcasting. First of all, nobody in my family had gone to college. Nobody. None of my siblings did. My mom was so excited that I was going to go to junior college. That was their path that they were choosing for me. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And I was going along with it because I just didn't know how to say no. I got a Pell Grant. I got the money to go to college. I was all set to go. And I was just not wanting to go to Red Lake College at all, which was a junior college. I wanted to go to SIU and study broadcasting. And I finally got the nerve up to tell my mom I don't want to go to Red Lake after all that legwork we did. And she was not happy with me. And I don't blame her. And it's funny how I set my destiny right there, right then. I was a smart kid and I did not go to college. I do not have a college degree. I'll be honest with you. I could say a lot of things about me that's not good. I'm not the best looking guy in the world. I'm heavy, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not a dummy. I'm a very smart person. And maybe I don't seem like it or act like it, but that's something I will not, I do not like people calling me stupid or thinking I'm mentally challenged or whatever, because I am absolutely not. Sometimes I'm too smart for my own good. But a dumb person, I made some dumb choices, done some dumb things because I'm human, not because I wasn't intelligent. I probably, looking back, just the fact that we weren't experienced in going to college, I could have went ahead and went to Red Lake and, finished and graduated and then gone on to SIU and done further studies. But I'll tell you a secret. I didn't like school. I just didn't like being in class. I was bored and it was like uninteresting. And, so yeah, I just, I don't know. I guess I led myself on the path I was supposed to go down, because had I not worked where I am, had I not been led to that, I wouldn't have a lot of the friends I have in my life. A lot of things that happened to me, I would have never happened. And I think maybe had I gone on to broadcasting, the television and radio world is not like it used to be. I have a lot of people who got into that field, or I befriended some TV broadcasters and radio broadcasters, especially the television broadcasters. The television industry is not the greatest thing right now. I have no respect for television journalism. I think it's horrible. They've totally lost sight of what they should be. They're supposed to be reporting the news, not being biased. I don't like what's happened to television broadcasting. A lot of these stations are being bought out by big corporations, and like our local ABC station has been bought out and they're taking the uniqueness away. And I hate that. But did I make the right decisions? I'll never know, will I? So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to lament that, oh, I'm such a loser and I should have done this and I've got a loser job and blah, blah, blah. Because somehow, some way in the world, somehow podcasting came along and I actually get to broadcast like I really wanted to do, when I was a kid, and I'm doing it on my terms. I'm not making any money at this, but it is something I really enjoy, and I get to kind of live out my dream of being a broadcaster by podcasting. So I think that's really cool. But anyway, who would have thought that in 1985 I could do this? I could share my thoughts about all this and broadcast it to the world on a podcast. That's just wonderful. Anyway, I think I've totally gone away from my subject on this. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. But when it comes down to it, the year 1985 was a very important year of my life. And these reunions are fun. And I vowed to go, if I'm able to go to every 10-year reunion. I don't know about if we have a 45 year. I don't know that I'll be able to go to that, but the 10 years for sure I won't miss. God, I don't even want to think about the next 10 years because 10 years from now I'll be pushing 70. Life is so fast. It kind of blows my mind. 40 years. I sit there and I could never, when I see my classmates, you know, we're all getting older. Everybody's still who they are inside. And I love these people to death, but it's just strange. A lot of us look like our parents now. A lot of us look like our grandparents now. I'm almost the age my grandma was when I was born. She was 60. I am 58. I'll be 59 later this year. And that's just a strange thing to me because I had older parents. So therefore I had an older grandma. And here I am approaching her age. It's just strange. I think I call it future shock. I have future shock. Well, I'm going to take a break and I think I'm going to wrap this up. I think I've bit your ear long enough about this subject, but I'll be right back. I'm Leonard Riggs. This is my podcast from my head to your ears. I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast from my head to your ears. And I've been talking about my senior year in high school and my class reunion in the 1980s and 1985 in particular, the year I graduated. And it's been fun kind of looking back. It's funny, 40 years, things are starting to get a little cloudy with me. And I've always prided myself in having a good memory, and possibly if I wasn't so tired, I would remember stuff better. But tonight it just kind of a jumbled mess in my brain. But you notice I don't talk a lot about my social activities in that time because I really was not a social butterfly. I was really I like to stay at home. I like to watch movies. I kept to myself. I had my friends. We hung out at school. I didn't really hang out after school. I wasn't someone who cruised uptown. I was very much to myself, and I've kind of remained that way throughout my life. I have a lot of friends, but I'm not real social. To this day, I don't like to go places. You have to almost twist my arm. But I always enjoy myself when I do, you know. So there's that. I don't know. Would I go back and do it all over again? Would I do anything different? That is the question we probably all ask ourselves. And it's like, if I didn't live the life that I've lived, I would not have the people that I love in my life. So there's the answer. But then again, I probably have different people that I loved in my life. Who knows? I might have been a movie star. But it doesn't matter. So why bother to I'm not going to cry over it. I don't have too bad of a life. I really am not enjoying this particular time of my life. I feel like I feel like a snow globe that's been turned upside down and shook. I've got to find my new normal. I got to find everything's in a state of craziness right now. I think it'll be good for me to go to this reunion and just touch bases with a lot of people. I hope to see people I haven't seen in a while. I hope we have a good turnout. I don't know. And I'm really sad. Like I said, I'm sad that the people I've lost. Oh, 2 young girls that liked me when I was in the first grade that argued on the bus. Angie Rogers and Melissa Wiggs. And they literally would sit on each side of me and argue because I was their boyfriend. And the whole Melissa Wiggs and Leonard Riggs thing haunted us throughout our school years all the way, and people still talk about it, the Riggs and Wiggs connection, because our names sounded familiar. I remember the 8th grade, people were doing Riggs and Wiggs stories when we had to write stories. And so we were kind of celebrities. So that's funny. And Angie Rogers, what a beautiful girl. Sweet, angelic girl with twinkly eyes and a sweet smile. Beautiful, beautiful, smart girl. Her mama, Patty, and her family, her dad, all of that family is very special to me. And Ricky Karkemeyer, I'm talking about the deceased people. I remember Ricky. He was a real scrawny kid, and we went away to our 8th grade, and we come back, and he's like 7 feet tall. And just a nice guy. And Otis, oh my gosh, we had a guy named Timmy Hall, and we called him Otis, and I used to give him my lunch, and his mom worked where I worked, actually. Not the same place, but she worked for the same company. And she was a very nice lady. And he was just a big old mess. I think he might have been one of our first classmates to pass. And then there's Del Pinkham. Del, I found out, was my cousin later in life, but if we couldn't be the most opposite of people, but similar at the same time. It's funny, he had the same friends I had early in my life, later in life. And I just found that odd. And we both like to laugh. I love to laugh. And my last memory of Del was always a goofball. But my last memory of Del was, we were laughing about the old days, and his girlfriend was with him, Sandy. And, I have a great last memory. And, I'm glad I had that moment. It was an unusual. It was like we stopped and just visited. I was at work. And I get in trouble for that, but I really don't care because it is very important to me that in a way that was a goodbye and a good memory. And then he passed away, unexpectedly. Dan Chassé, very smart guy, always smiling, quiet guy, very nice. John Moore, his mom was our playground teacher. his nephew, he was kind of like me. He had a nephew actually in the same class, and just a very nice person. I'm trying to remember, have I forgotten anybody? Robin McGee, Hammond's, was a lifelong friend. She just passed away a couple of weeks ago. I didn't forget her. I was going to say her last because she's the last of us to pass lately. She worked for the city of Cesar, which is a nearby city, and her son, we call him Papa Doc, and her son Randy. He hung around with my nephews, and they're good boys. And Robin lost a brother who was my nephew's best friend years ago, and I remember how devastated she was, and I know how close Robin was to her mom and her sister Andrea, and big loss in her class. And I can always remember her. So I'm hoping I've not forgotten anybody. I'm just kind of scouring through my brain. If I have, I'm so sorry. But those were the pictures I was going through, and when I was colorizing them and fooling with them and looking at them, I thought, who would have thought? Life is so random. Anyway, I really am fortunate to have known those people, and I'm a better person for it, I think. And maybe someday we'll see each other again. It's going to be weird that they're not going to be at the reunion, but their memory lives with us always. But anyway, I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears, and I'll be back later with another podcast soon. Hopefully I won't take so long. I love that you guys listen, and I love that you guys look forward to my latest podcast. I hope this one isn't too weird. Honestly, my podcasts are like what's going on in my head, and they're all over the place, and that's just me and my ADHD. Hey, me and my ADHD. Anyway, I did say I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears. I'm going to shut up now. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.